If we have spiritual wasp nests within our personal framework that are cutting us off from our Savior's water or His vine, then we're not going to be receiving that peace in adequate amounts. We're going to feel dry or parched, like we're not getting enough, no matter how hard we're working. There was a long period of my life when I experienced waves of depression. It almost felt like I was mourning the death of someone I loved, but I couldn't figure out why or who. I also felt like I was on an emotional roller coaster with all the ups and downs of raising kids. My temper was short. I often felt worthless because of my inability to remain balanced in the face of all that adversity. I definitely was at least partially cut off from the Savior's living water. In the last video, I talked about how fear can lead to procrastinating our conflict resolution processes, which can lead to larger spiritual wasp nests and eventually to the death of our spiritual lawn. When we don't know how to resolve a spiritual problem or fear the pain and discomfort of trying to do it, we may put it off for long periods of time. It may be true that we don't know what to do or that we don't have the skills to resolve it, but there are others who are skilled and trustworthy that can help us. In my conflict resolution process with my sprinkler system, there were a number of unknowns about spraying wasp nests that made me feel nervous about moving forward on my own. My experience with them was minimal. I had sprayed smaller wasp nests on the eaves of my house back in Colorado, but I never faced something as big as the nest in my irrigation box. But I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. My grass needed water. I texted my sister Melody and her husband Craig. They immediately responded. I told them the details and sent them a picture and a video of the problem. I found out that Craig had more experience using the wasp spray on larger nests. Because he had had this problem himself and had resolved it, he knew how to help me. He and my sister didn't hesitate to answer my call for help and were at my house by 9 o'clock that night with the wasp spray in hand. After a short discussion, I took them into the backyard. It was getting dark, but we were still able to see using our cell phone lights. Craig checked the nest out and then stood about 10 to 15 feet away and sprayed. He drew incrementally nearer and finally was able to spray inside a hole in the top of the nest, hoping it would infiltrate the entire thing. We let it sit for a few minutes and then poked it with a metal rod. Wasps continued flying out, so he sprayed it again until the cam was gone. The next day, I purchased more wasp spray and had no fear about killing the rest of them and cleaning the nest out on my own. I had also called another friend, Trent Burnett, from our neighborhood and ward, who came over to help and immediately identified the problem. There was a white wire that had been disconnected by the wasps, which he quickly and skillfully reconnected. We spent the next half hour testing out the sprinkler stations, all of which worked. With plenty of water, the healing began. Contacting Melody, Craig, and Trent for help proved to be a smart move. The problem was resolved within a couple of days. Each proved skillful, trustworthy, and knowledgeable that a resolution process existed. These characteristics are needed in conflict resolution. They didn't try to blame the problem all on me, but neither did they try to absolve me of the part I had to play in fixing it. They were focused on objectively fixing it with me. These are valuable resources. We may fear asking for help, and that fear may be well-founded if in the past we have turned to resources who have not been trustworthy or who didn't have the skills to help us. That certainly was the case for me when I was a young mom, and I hadn't yet developed a relationship with the Savior that was close enough for me. When Aaron and Chris, my oldest boys, who are now 26 and 24, when they were still in diapers and we were living in New Jersey, I went to a counselor. She told me, knowing full well that I already had children, that some women weren't meant to be mothers and that I should just go out and get a job and get daycare for my kids. I left there just feeling awful and just in tears because more than anything, I wanted and needed to be a valuable resource for my children. But this professional counselor's advice would be like telling me some sprinkler systems are not meant to be functional. You should install a new sprinkler system, or better yet, sell your home and move to a new one where there are no wasps and a sprinkler system works. And she may say something like this because she doesn't know the framework of a sprinkler system, the possible causes of malfunction, or how to fix it. Listening to people like this causes the wasp nest in our personal framework to become even more virulent. There is another kind of nest I studied in a microbiology class I took a few years ago that may shed more light to help us understand the nature of spiritual wasp nests. It is a microbial nest called a biofilm. The plaque that accumulates on our teeth is an example of a biofilm. We also have them inside of our other organ systems. A biofilm is composed of different types of microbes with different properties and abilities that resist antibiotics and antifungals. The microbes group together, share nutrients and DNA, evolve, and form a physical barrier which makes them like a single organism with superpowers that the immune system can't detect. They often interweave with healthy bacteria, steal minerals from the host body, and release toxins, all which prevent the body from receiving the natural resources it needs to be healthy. Standard antibiotics don't work against these parasites. The key is to break it down in order to separate and eliminate the pathogenic bacteria from the matrix. Once it is gone, the rest can be more easily and safely cleaned out. When we compare a physical biofilm to a spiritual biofilm, we might say that the various microbes represent certain rules, laws, or ideas that may or may not be true within our personal framework. Partial truths and falsehoods are like pathogenic bacteria. We usually have truths, partial truths, and falsehoods all grouped together. These falsehoods emit toxins that prevent the Savior's living water from nourishing our souls. The solution is to break down this group of ideas into smaller pieces so we can analyze and differentiate between what is true and what is false. Then eliminate the false and organize the truth.